Hey, well, welcome to lesson 39, where we're going to be talking about recursion. Recursion is basically using a method to call on that method. So it's very repetitive and it can get tricky, but we're not going to let it trick us. In fact, one of the biggest jokes about recursion is that in order to understand recursion, one must understand recursion. So get ready to understand recursion. Surprisingly, you guys already know recursion a little bit because you've heard of factorials. Factorials are a form of recursion. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to do a factorial in Java. So let's say we want to create 4 factorial. So let's create our loop. So what you want to do is create your loop and start your count. And we're just going to say int I equals 1. We're start our count at 1, and we're going to go until it's equal to 4, and each time we're going to increase. So we're going to start at the number 1, because in a factorial you don't multiply by 0, you multiply by 1. So then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to keep a runtime answer. So I'm going to come outside my loop and set up int answer equals 1, because again we don't want to multiply by 0. And then inside our loop, we're going to say answer equals answer times I. So then each time what it'll do is it'll be 1. 1 times 1 will be 1. Then it'll be 1 times 2. Oh, I made that a J, not an I. And I made this a J, not an I. Make sure all your things coordinate. And after your loop, come down and do a system.out.print line and print your answer, and it should give you 24 because 4 times 3 is 12, times 2 is 24, times 1 is 24. And it does. Now, this is called an iterative or loop type approach. But what we want to do is learn the recursive way to do this. Right. The only weird thing that you need to remember about factorials is that it's just a rule that 0 factorial equals 1. So it's just one of the laws of factorials. I know it doesn't really make sense, but it is what it is. Okay, so now I want you to copy all of your comments from the top, and we're going to create a new class, and we're just going to name this one lesson 39 part 2 or P2. Don't forget to turn on your public string, and I'm going to paste all my comments at the top. I'm going to change to with recursion. So what you're going to do in here is we're going to create a couple methods that we're going to use. So what we're going to do first is here in our main, we're just going to use system.out.println and do factorial 4. Okay, that doesn't mean anything yet. We haven't created that method. So come down below your main, and we're going to do public static factorial. It's going to go in a here, and we're going to send it an int. And we're going to name it just whatever you want to name it. I'm going to call mine int, because right here we have factorial with the 4. So that's why we put the integer right there. In this method, we're going to create an if-else statement. Okay, so now we just have the bare bones of this created. So what we want to do is take 4 here, send it to this method, and have this method calculate our factorial for us. Now this method we set up with an int, so we are expecting to return an integer. So the question remains, what do we want to return? So if you look at what a factorial actually is, like 6 factorial is 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Or you can even look at it as 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. It's all multiplication, it works that way. So what you could even say is 6 factorial is equal to 6 times 5 factorial. So we can write our own code based on the fact that n factorial is equal to n times n minus 1 factorial. So what we're going to put in our else is it's going to return n times factorial n minus 1. So we're actually using our method inside of our method. So that's kind of the secret to doing factorial is you return the one you go for the one you want to do times one less than that. So if we come in with a 4, we're doing a 4, we run this again, but you see how now we're sending factorial n minus 1. So now we are sending it 3. So now this becomes 3. It's kind of weird, but it makes sense because then once it's 3, n minus 1 is now 2, so it runs through it again. Then it's 1, and it stops. So now if we want it to stop, we will tell it that if n is equal to 1, don't forget double equals to test, then it returns 1. So basically the if statement is going to end our loop, and the else statement is going to keep it going. So this should give us the answer of 24. So go ahead and run it, and it does. Good job. All right, you're now ready to move on to the next video for lesson 39.